All right, talk fans, welcome to another exciting issue of No Coast Defenders. As always, I'm joined by Dan and Tim, and this week we have a special guest, Josh, aka Buck, who has been mentioned here before in his
Oh,
no trailers philosophy, which is still something
I-
that I envy. How
I'm
you doing
still
tonight?
living and dying by that.
It's I don't know how you do it. You have such willpower, sir.
I do what I can. It's getting easier now that I just don't pay attention to anything. So, but I love being surprised at the movie. Like, I don't want to try and find out everything about it.
Yeah, with the way trailers are going nowadays, I don't know what the reasoning is. They must be desperate for people to go see the movie if they're releasing most of the details in the trailers nowadays. It's terrible.
It's also really annoying when they have stuff in the trailers and then you watch the movie and it's not in the movie.
Exactly.
Oh,
Yeah.
it's like, oh,
That
great. I
gets
was
me.
excited about that, and that's the one thing I didn't see. Thanks.
Exactly.
I think Any Given Sunday was the first example of that for me. There was a scene for featuring LL Cool J that didn't make the movie, and I was like, all right, why put a funny L line in the trailer if it's not going to be in the movie?
Right?
I think the worst offender has to be the the group from Infinity War running towards the camera with Hulk in the background. They changed it from that lush jungle to like just this boring, desolate like plain outside the city, and it couldn't have looked worse.
Yeah. No, I totally agree.
Well, and trailers are interesting too because no one involved in the actual movie ever has anything to do with the trailer for the most part. It's a separate
Yeah.
team from the studio, so they just get footage. They actually have no idea what's going to be in the movie.
Yeah, that is the hard part. You got two different hands trying to represent the same thing. It's kind of almost impossible.
All right, Buck, what first got you into superheroes?
That's a good question. I guess. Well, honestly, it was probably the X-Men animated cartoon, if I'm going to be honest. I just enjoyed the art of it, and I enjoyed how much they help people. I guess was really a big thing, kind of something I could try and become, as a child.
I think that cartoon influenced so many folks around our age. I mean, especially in an area like we didn't have a comic book shop in our hometown
Right.
growing up. We had a spinner rack at the grocery store, and that wasn't even there by the time we were teenagers. So.
Right, and I had no idea what was coming or when it was coming.
And what a partnership they formed with Pizza Hut for those personal pan pizzas with the X-Men comic you go home with.
I was never a big Pizza Hut person growing up, but I did have a Batley from Eureka's Castle puppet.
Oh,
And that was my prized Pizza Hut toy. So
Yeah, I never cared for the food. I just went for the Land Before Time puppet, the X-Men comic, or
Nice.
the book it thing. Just say I read a book, give me a pizza. Like,
yeah, it was great for reading. That's for sure.
Oh yeah.
I always earned the pizzas with Book It, but I rarely redeemed them. But my mother had 4 kids, so if only one of us had a Book It, she couldn't afford to buy the other 3 children and herself each personal pan pizzas because that's what it would turn into because kids are ridiculous.
Yeah, see, so like I was poor. So like a free pizza meant like it doesn't matter if I enjoyed it or not. Like
Yeah.
it's food now. So we rolled with that. But I mean, it was also just fun to say I read a book because that was a time, when you're at that age and like reading is still fun. It's not forced on you for a test you're gonna take. It's just like, hey, read this, you might enjoy it.
And then you get free pizza.
Yeah, and then you get free pizza because that's the days when we could all be wooed with a pizza party or a free item.
I
like a
still
free
can. I'm not gonna lie.
pizza.
I feel like every time I go home, I go to a pizza party with Josh. So
Nothing wrong with that.
usually it's him buying pizza because the only time I have pizza is when I'm with Josh. So
It's just so convenient.
it is. I can't disagree with you there. Let's jump into some comic book news. Tim, anything jump out at you this week?
Oh, I can't remember. I'm sure there's a bunch of stuff. So one thing that I did end up sending to the two of you, Josh, I'm not sure if you've heard this before, but Emily Blunt actually came out and dispelled rumors that her and John got approached for Mr. and Mrs. Fantastic, and she went on to say that she really isn't a big fan of superheroes, essentially like paraphrasing, calling them like cheap thrills, essentially.
She did
Now-
say she regretted turning down Black Widow, though. So that
She did, and she went on to say that certain roles are fun.
Yeah.
So, which is
And
interesting.
Here she is about to do Jungle Cruise with The Rock.
I was just gonna say that. She's talking about one-dimensional characters. I'm like, Jesus.
Yeah. But at the same time, can't be picky. Not every movie is gonna be Edge of Tomorrow, which apparently, I'm not saying it was a good movie or a successful movie.
Here's
but
hoping not every movie's Edge of Tomorrow.
Well, the other thing is she said she didn't want to be tied down to playing just that character for years to come, which many of them have. That's why many stars haven't.
Yeah, I can understand that. That's like a whole career.
Right. But I find it so interesting because her name has been attached to Fantastic Four since before Fantastic Four was ever rumored. So it's so interesting that it's like now it's coming out. Like, oh, now you get these words when like you just let us on this whole time thinking like her and John could just be this awesome team up there, and now you don't want to. I get it though.
Well, and I think Krasinski does kind of look like Reed Richards. So once his name is tied into it, and his real life wife is a phenomenal actress, but really, if she's not interested, because the Krasinski rumors were out there long before she was rumored, bring in Jenna Fisher. Let's have them play a couple again.
I don't know, because I follow her on Instagram and she's more the cat lady than anything else to me at this point. So it'd be difficult to see her as a superhero because she's just like, I feel like she could live next door to me and bring me cookies at this point. So it's very,
I can't picture her as a blonde either.
Yeah.
Sue doesn't need to be blonde. She's the Invisible Woman.
That's true.
You don't know what
Invisible hair.
she's
Only
got.
half the time though.
Yeah, in that case, I mean, I'm guessing nobody has to actually play the character. We just accept that she exists.
For all they know, they can cast Brad Pitt to do it again, like he did in Deadpool 2.
I mean, for all we know, it could be Danny DeVito, and I'd be happy just thinking that.
Yeah.
Well,
that's not a bad idea.
I mean, I love the fan casting that just has the Always Sunny team as the Fantastic Four.
Oh yeah.
And I mean, both are owned by Disney, so we could do this. We could do an episode of Always Sunny where they are Fantastic Four, like how they did the Lethal Weapons, which rightfully so are no longer available for streaming. But
yeah, I mean, I'd be all about it. I actually don't even think it'd be too far off. It sounds much like a skit of theirs, and Rob McElhenney was all about it when people started putting that out there. I think he shared it on every platform, and he went with it. So I wouldn't be surprised if it gets written somewhere just as a nod to the fans.
Yeah, I could see that happening. Dan, did anything catch your eye in comic book news?
Really no, because I've been doing so many rewatches for mine and Tim's segment, and then somebody made me sit through some Batman movies. And
I don't know what the problem is.
Nothing much that caught my eye as of late, other than the Venom trailer that we spoke about already. The MODOK series is looking intriguing to me. I like the style of it. It's not the way that I was hoping MODOK would be delivered to us, but I'm optimistic based on some stills that I've seen and some stuff I've seen from the set. And I don't think it's meant to blow our minds, but I think it's meant to be a lot of fun, and I think we could use that now. So I'm excited for it to come out.
Just jumping back real quick to the Venom trailer, I can't be the only one who forgot that Andy Serkis is directing that, and so I got myself a little bit more excited for it.
I don't even know if I knew that.
I did.
Honest.
I actually forgot that as well.
But I recently saw that too. It's like, oh,
yeah,
that's gonna be fun.
Yeah, I've rewatched the trailer a few times. I'm like, it can't be that bad. And I think what it comes down to is just that Cookie Monster voice is what really kills me. Outside of that, I don't. I'm excited to watch Woody Harrelson. I just actually this morning watched White Men Can't Jump just in the background. I love Woody, but I just that voice just kills me so much to the point where I was watching a Sesame Street segment yesterday and I had Cookie Monster talking like, oh, it's Venom. So,
At the same time, though, I'd rather have the problems be with Venom than Carnage, since
Oh,
this
yeah.
is the first time we've seen Carnage on screen before.
yeah, definitely. You know, I'm just wondering how much is going to set up which franchise, you know, because they're obviously tied with Spidey. We're obviously going to get linked at some point. And so I'm just questioning, you know, like Morbius is on hold now and that universe is supposed to be built upon. You know, I just really wonder what the direction we're going in, because we know it's not a standalone movie. And I'm trying to push those questions out of my head so I can just enjoy the movie when I sit down and watch it, as opposed to like trying to world build in my own head.
See how it fits into everything.
Right. Yeah. Because to me right now, things don't make sense based on like the Marvel releases and where Spidey fits there. And then the contract between Sony and Marvel and the rights to Peter Parker and all these other people. And then the projects Sony has lined up.
Yeah, that's a whole mess.
Right. Like none of it's making sense to me, but I think I'm going to stop trying to make it make sense and just go into it and be like, am I going to enjoy this experience or what?
Yeah. Keep a small sample size, just the movie, see what happens. Forget how it fits.
Actually, I did remember a small piece of news I wanted to mention, but it is a spoiler for well, okay. It's not plot related, it's character related for Spider-Man 3. So this is the point in the recording where Greg will put in the timestamp if you want to skip.
Don't promise the folks that I don't know how to do timestamps.
But one of the costume designers got a little too antsy, and their name showed up on IMDb in the credits, and she's listed as a personal costume designer, and this lady happens to be the personal costume designer for Kirsten Dunst. So we're getting ever so closer to her getting confirmed for the movie.
Oh,
even
okay.
And I guess Tom Holland and Andrew Garfield have been denying each other's involvement in the movie. Obviously not Tom Holland because he's the star of the movie, but
I think that's honestly been fun.
Yeah, props to him for actually being able to at least attempt to keep a secret anymore.
Well, the only way he can attempt to keep a secret is if they make a game of it. So this is actually brilliant. They just need to start like pulling out like the rumor that Damon Wayans will be Blank Man in the Spider-Man, so he can talk about shows and talk about how he loves and respects the Wayans as comedians and would love for Blank Man to appear, but it's not happening. Like,
you know, to circle back, Greg, I did have a comic book announcement.
Let's hear it.
To all of my friends, my fellow nerds, my comic book lovers, please stop sharing things from We Got This Covered. Please stop reading We Got This Covered.
Yes.
Stop tagging people and We Got This Covered. It's straight nonsense. It's garbage. It's rubbish. If you throw a dart at something 100 times, you're bound to hit it once. Please stop spreading it. Please stop creating the hysteria around it. And please stop being the reason why rumors get started that aren't even remotely true, but people hinge to these things. Thank you.
Well, to be fair, I only see We Got It Covered when you comment on someone sharing it on Facebook.
Yeah.
Then it comes across my timeline. So yeah.
Well, so here's the thing. I've blocked them, I've unfollowed them, I've reported them as like spam, just so they stop showing up in my stuff. And then people tag me in the crap. And then like, did you do this? And then I get text messages. And I'm like, please, just for the love, stop. Like, no, we're not going to have the Japanese Spider-Man in all the next Spider-Man movies. We just have to look really closely. Like, just stop with all of it.
We should, though.
Yeah, it's not that we shouldn't. It's just so absurd. You know, it's like you read like political headlines, like, here's this because it fits this like narrative. And then you go to We Got This Covered. It's the nerd version of that. Like, everybody's talking about it, so we might as well just throw something at it. Like, for the love, just please stop sharing it. Stop tagging me in it. Stop pretending that it's even remotely real. If you read past the first two sentences, you realize, oh, this is fake. This is an uneducated guess. So just stop, please. We Got This Coverage trash. Recognize it as such and just be done with it.
Well, and before I knew what they were, the few times I did click on something, they definitely use the word speculate a lot in there. And it's like they're hoping by using speculate, they sound like they're not making things up. But
Right.
They are, because they never have a source. There's just always them speculating. It's not like, oh, so-and-so's third cousin said this. At least give us that.
It's not
Right.
even a disreputable source. There's just nothing.
It's just a whole nothing burger, and it doesn't taste very good.
Yeah. I am going to start a site that is We Don't Got This Covered, though. And I'm going to just make up my own rumors as well.
Are you just going to share every take I had during the WandaVision series and just leave it at that?
Yeah, it is actually going to be a list of the characters who could still be Mephisto. And it's every character we've seen so far, including, you know how at IMDb actors will just like tag themselves as extra and whatever.
Mhm.
I will start listing those as potential.
Mephisto.
Just trying to keep a secret. That's all.
Which, since this is your first time on the pod, Buck, you've watched the first two Disney Plus series, I'm going to assume.
I have. Yeah.
I know with the young one, it's a little hard for you, but so I didn't want to assume too much, but I had faith in that much for you.
I appreciate that. Yeah.
What were your opinions?
I really enjoyed WandaVision. It was way out there, which I thought was really cool. And I think Anthony Mackie himself touched upon that. Like, it was a good way to start the television series, because it kind of changes people's expectations of what can be done.
Yeah.
And it was fun. It was funky, and people definitely got into it. I noticed that for sure. And I really enjoyed the Falcon and Winter Soldier. Just a big fan of Sebastian Stan and Bucky anyway. But that was a really cool storyline, and it was all really well done. As far as I can tell, like just like a long movie if you strung it all together.
I didn't realize how lucky we were to have Sebastian Stan until this series. You know, I know that he has a lot of fans out there, a lot of stans, if you will. I didn't quite grasp just how great he was until the series, to be honest.
I think my love for him grew because of this. I think I just sort of liked him because I almost felt like I had to. And then just, I don't know why, but with this series, I guess he was able, more screen time it probably helped a lot too. Like
an actual dialogue.
Right. You know, that does a lot for an actor, actually, giving him a chance to act.
That'll go a long way.
I think he did a really great job at brooding, but yeah, being able to actually act.
Yeah.
But I mean, David Voorhees got his start as an actor because a casting agent saw him walking his dog and thought he could brood really well. So apparently that is all you need.
A good starting point, that's for sure.
All right. Now, what series are you most looking forward to coming up?
I personally am looking forward to Moon Knight. That is correct. You didn't even have to guess at that, did you?
Well, I bought this to give to you years ago, and
yeah, it's been at least 2 for sure.
And now Greg plays with it during bath time.
no,
if I ever get it, I'm disinfecting.
I spent a whole $5 on this, but do be careful disinfecting it. I'm the one who took this in on trade and cleaned it up, and some of the disinfectant was starting to affect the cape. So knowing I was buying it for you, I quit with that. So.
Okay.
I think the Moon Knight series is going to be awesome, but I love that they're so tight-lipped on that set. Like, they're not releasing the villains they're not releasing anything.
Well, I don't want to speculate too much, but
Jesus.
Yeah. But I did see it was a short little article and there wasn't much to it, but they show Ethan Hawke on set, and there's speculation that he is going to be playing I forgot his friend's name there that kind of dicked him over. I don't know. I guess there's a big, yeah, the Bushman.
I thought about
that.
That
would make sense. You know, that's first issue Moon Knight, so that would make sense.
Yeah.
That's what I had surmised, but I'm also kind of wondering if the Sun King is going to be involved. So,
well, there was a rumor that he was playing the Sun King, but like with all this stuff, it is all just rumors until Disney makes an official announcement.
Mm-hmm.
It's really funny because if you watch comic book values, that's where you can kind of wonder what's happening. Um, so I've just been watching like all these Moon Knight books go up. Like Moon Knight 188, all of a sudden it's just like skyrocketing, which like it'd be in the, well, no Moon Knight's in the 50-cent bin anymore, but it'd be like in the dollar bin, 2 months ago, and now all of a sudden, boom, it's like $25. Buy it now, and it's like, okay, so you think it's gonna happen? I'm gonna wait for everybody to spend this money, then try to get some back. I'm gonna pay half of that for my duplicate copy of that. It's just interesting, but I will admit I've been going through my Moon Knight box and finding my triples and quadruple copies because they're going to be ready to go out soon.
Yeah, you don't really need 3 copies of it.
But don't you? I don't know.
Well, I don't know either. I only got the one of each,
I've always told myself that, and then the second like Black Panther got out, all of a sudden I couldn't find it. And I'm somebody who I like to upgrade my copies of things. So like I have like the original Jungle Action Black Panther series, so I want to have the best version of it because at some point my ass is going to die. My daughter's going to want to sell all my stuff. So she might as well have something valuable to sell.
That's some nice stuff.
So I like to upgrade copies. And then what I do with the copies that, my triplets is I find collectors and I give them to them. Like there's a few of us who collect Black Panther like in my area. So if I have, a triple of something, then I'm just going to give it to somebody else so that they can enjoy it for their collection, once I've upgraded. So I try to go that route, and I'm finding that between Black Panther, Namor, and Moon Knight, it's next to impossible now because everybody's chasing the next big thing. Not for collecting purposes, but for money purposes.
Right. Yeah.
And it's just absolutely driving me insane. But luckily, we have an LCS near us, and he pulls stuff anytime it comes in for me, so I can jump on that. Or Tim tucks it away in my folder because he's always got look out for me.
I'm still cautiously optimistic about the Moon Knight series because I've always seen the rumors of movies or failed TV shows from I don't know how long back, just ages. But I think this one's actually going to happen. So,
I think that I was initially worried under the Disney umbrella, but given the leeway that they've given the studios, especially the graphic stuff that we got and Falcon Winter Soldier, the fact that they're willing to take on Deadpool. I think we're going to get Moon Knight, and I know we're going to get Moon Knight, but I think it's going to actually be done right.
Not
the gloves on. I think
not a watered down version.
Yeah, I think we're going to get the Moon Knight that we're hoping for, and I'm really excited for it.
Full fist of Khonshu.
Yes.
I know I've been beating this to death, but I recently reread the new Avengers, the first up until Civil War, and you get the introduction to Maya Lopez in that series as Ronin, and it just doubled down on how excited I am for that Echo series and to see what they're going to do with that character, since they have so much leeway to create with that, since the stories are limited with her. But so Hawkeye and then Echo, I'm excited. Series that hasn't even started pre-production yet.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I hope Jeremy Renner can kind of keep things in control so we can actually get the series, because it's been on again, off again so much because of his own personal stuff. So I'm hoping he gets the help he needs. I'm hoping that,
Oh, what happened?
He's just a little bit off the rails. He's got some use issues here, some domestic issues there. But it's all what's reported to us. I'm not in his house. I just know he's got a lot of stuff going on.
We can only speculate.
Yeah, it's just caused production to be on again, off again. Is he in the MCU anymore? Is he not? Kind of stuff. And because they, as public as they are, as public as these characters are, they have to handle it a certain way. So I just hope that it's handled in such a way that we still get the series and he gets some help that he appears to need based on what's often reported.
Yeah, and you can tell in when they're promoting one of the Avengers movies or the Civil War, and they're all doing the group tours, and someone asks them, "Oh, who's the one to get a good time together?" And it's always Renner that they look at. So
yeah,
the rumors have been out there for a while about his issues, and it's just more and more. And I love what he does on Hawkeye, so I hope for that sake he can, but for his own sake, he seems like outside of his demons, he just seems like a good hang and a good guy. So hopefully he can get that help, and we'll get Hawkeye. I think we're gonna get a Kate Bishop Hawkeye, whether he can get it together or not. They'll make that work, but for him, I want him to get it together. So
yeah, he's only 2 years removed from allegedly threatening to kill his ex-wife over custody battles and stuff, and that's still lingering. And Disney, to their credit, rather than going to a quick termination or something like that, they've basically gone the no comment route. We're addressing it, we're looking into it. And again, wasn't there. I hope that things are resolved. I hope he gets the help he needs. I hope whatever happens and that we get the series selfishly, but more importantly that
Yeah,
whatever help is needed.
as excited as I am for Moon Knight, I feel like I haven't heard too much talk about the What If series, but I am stoked for that. And I hope by the time that this is done, they have plans to follow this up with an Infinity Warps series in the same style, because that would just be a dream come true.
That would be excellent. And if you think about the Infinity Warps thing, the only thing we're missing right now, I believe the character that fused is the Moon Knight. So that would kind of tie all those together.
Everything in.
Yeah.
But that was a great run, great comic run. So are the What Ifs. So I mean, just seeing those come to fruition, that's gonna be great.
Was the What If planned to be animated?
Yep.
I thought, so you can do,
like cell shaded almost.
oh, that's cool. You could do pretty much anything you wanted with that animation and the What If line. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And-
So some a couple of the confirmed stories, and I think the first story is Peggy Carter actually gets the serum and becomes Captain Britain. And
cool.
I guess Killmonger is set to be in that same episode in some capacity. And then they have like if T'Challa got picked up by Yondu instead of Peter Quill.
Mm-hmm.
That's dope. And this is actually going to be Chadwick Boseman's final project.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it sounds like it's going to be a really good time.
Yeah, the animation was a good choice because, I mean, not only budget constraints, but it's easier to get those folks to come back after their contracts to do a 28-minute voice acting thing instead of having to do any sort of live action, because even an episode of these shows they're doing with that production value would be intense. So
I'm all in. To be honest, as critical as I've been in a lot of projects, it's usually after the fact when they've given us something better than what I'm commenting on in the moment. So I'm really optimistic and excited.
Yeah, with the news about, we saw Jupiter Risings come across on Netflix, which mixed feelings on that. I hear a lot of people just that it's a Netflix show, Netflix production value, and that it came too late because of the Disney Plus. And I can understand that. Like, I love Mark Millar, and I love that Netflix decided to just buy the whole Millarverse and start creating series, and they've committed to almost everything now for his projects. So we're going to get that. Every Ryan K. Vaughn series is coming. We're finally going to get Why the Last Man. Paper Girls is coming to Netflix. So we're getting all the Vaughn stuff. Saga's probably not too far away, although...
I was just going to say, hopefully they do that.
If they're going to do Saga, I'd almost rather they go like an animated route. But at the same time, Fiona Staples' artwork on that series is just so beautiful that I don't know that I would want anyone else to be drawn.
Right. Yeah. Have her do all of the animation.
Well, and they have a planned ending for that too. So they're halfway through their planned ending before. So if you're going to pick it up and start a series at all with it, now would, I guess, be the time. Because by the time you're caught up to where they are, they'll probably be done with, they're taking a break now. But Saga, I think, of all the Vaughn stuff, probably has the most mass appeal.
Yeah, I can say it's not one that I read, but it's one that I've heard get a lot of excitement and traction.
You're not a space guy, so I don't know. It might not be for you, but it definitely goes beyond space. When it first popped up on the scene, there were so many like Star Wars Serenity because there are aliens, but no, I don't know that there's an apt comparison to anything else. Because yes, it is a space opera, but it's definitely more in the fantasy realm than a sci-fi realm, and the world building is just amazing for Saga. So I feel like Star Wars is just the default
just because
comparison
it's in
space. And then like Firefly is the cool kid comparison when it's involving space. So
I enjoyed Firefly.
And Firefly's great, and between the two, this is probably closer to Firefly because it's more grounded and real than Star Wars. Since I mean, Star Wars is essentially the longest war movie ever at this point. But
True. I think that's a good point that it's kind of grounded, but I love how it's very relatable, but there's also such absurd moments in it that
yeah,
just there's no explanation. It comes out of nowhere. There's a lot
I
of
mean,
fun.
and I feel like that's just Brian K. Vaughan in general. Like, no matter what he's working on, like he does these epic worlds that he creates, but the characters within those worlds, no matter what situations they're in, are just beyond relatable. And I know he's advising on Why the Last Man, so hopefully they do that justice. But of all his works, that's probably the easiest to adapt. And I'll be curious how Paper Girls turns out. I'll be curious what the reaction to Paper Girls is. Thankfully, it's got that Netflix money machine behind it, but it'll be interesting because it's not his most well-known work. But since we're at least Josh and I are recommending Saga to everyone right now, let's go into the reading recs. What do you got for us, Dan?
I actually have Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur, specifically a trade that's out, and it came out in 2020. It's full moon, and it's just a really good read, but it's a nice introduction to some characters we may see in the future, but also just solid reading. As a whole, there's more Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur trades coming out now, and it's just a really fun read. I've been reading it with Zoe. She loved the comics. And then those comics shot up in value, so we switched to trade so that I can tuck them away in her box for later. But it's just a really fun read, and it introduces people to characters in a way that they haven't been introduced before. So I would definitely recommend that. It's a quick read too, so grab not just this book, but any trades you can find of it. They're actually about $5 or $6 right now, eBay, local comic shops. So definitely dive into Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur.
Are the trades for that like a full-size trade, or are they one of like the small like reader trades?
Both. So there's some one-offs that aren't issue anthologies, where you got like 5 or 6 issues in them. They're actually just one-offs, and then there's some that are like the 5 or 6 issues. So I think that there are 8 volumes of the issues, and I think that there's another one coming out next month or the month after, and then there's some one-offs that are also really fun.
Okay, because I remember like with Runaways, when the trades first came out with those, they were like more of a manga-sized trade.
Yeah.
And that makes sense since Runaways was supposed to be geared towards a younger audience, and that's what I think definitely at the time was skewing towards the teen age kids. At least when I was working there, like manga was probably bigger than graphic novels, but I think with the success of the MCU, that's probably shifted considerably.
Yeah, these are much more manageable. Very, you might have like 3 pages that are just pictures too. So but it's really good art, which I've been able to say for a lot of modern comics. So it's just a great series, a fun series to read, whether you are young or old. If you like comic books, it's definitely something that you will enjoy reading.
Tim, did you have something for the folks?
I do, and I have a reading rec, and then I have some recommendations that I suggest you join me on. But to start off, for anyone who's been following mine and Dan's trip through the MCU, you know that I have professed my love for a couple characters, but definitely Spider-Man and Star-Lord are some of my favorite heroes. And we actually have one coming up in our next episode that I took a reading to, if you will. Strange Academy. I love me some Doctor Strange, and I decided to check this out when it first debuted. And I didn't get too far, but now that I have the trade, I'm definitely going to read up on the first I think it's like 5 or 7 issues, and it was phenomenal. It was absolutely phenomenal. It's a very unique story and a very diverse cast of characters that I'm excited to start reading. And then as far as other recommendations that have always kind of piqued my interest.
Tim, who does Strange Academy?
Oh, Mr. Scotty Young.
Mr. Scotty Young.
The writing is actually really good. I was actually really impressed. Unlike Carnage, Red, White, and Blood, that was just awful. But I picked Dan. I ended up ordering a trade of Department of Truth to give that
nice.
a read. I'm excited to read that, and I've seen this in our LCS quite a bit here and there. But Arrow is a really cool looking series that I can't wait to check out. I think once I get access to Pull Box, I'm gonna order a trade.
Now, Tim, were you going to start with New Agents of Atlas for that one, since that's where she was introduced, or are you just going to start with the solo
I
project?
most certainly can, I guess.
Because that was during the War of the Realms. It was like the only good thing to come from the War of the Realms series was New
Yeah.
Agents there. But Arrow had a really cool introduction in that one.
Yeah.
I can even let you just borrow the issue if you want, but the intro to Arrow was really cool in that, and it is a fun series.
Yeah, for those at home that don't know, I'm not talking ARROW. I'm talking AERO. She's a superhero that I believe can control wind, and she gets a nice little cameo. Well, not cameo, but some help from Iron Man in her solo series. So I saw her enough, and I'm ready to dive in and find out what she's all about.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Buck, did you have a recommendation for the folks?
I did. As we already talked about Moon Knight, that was my recommendation. I brought it with me. This one,
Oh, that's cool.
from the dead. It's the trade collecting the Warren Ellis run.
Who did the cover on that trade right there?
On the cover, I don't know if it's Shelby or not.
It's beautiful.
Yeah. Not sure who did the covers. That's my one problem with the trades is sometimes you don't get to see all the covers. Usually they're collected somewhere in the book, but
yeah.
This one I like. There's kind of a rebranding of Moon Knight. It's a cool new costume. I think it's a good introduction to the character for people who haven't read anything, because there's no real story arc. There's no old nemesis he's had that you have to catch up on.
Mm-hmm.
There's just five just cool stories, some supernatural stuff. I think it's a good introduction to the character, and it's good for me. I've been a fan for a while now, and it was just a nice fresh take. It was cool to see.
Well, and Ellis's his problems aside, he can
Right.
be a problematic guy, but Ellis, like, his mind is brilliant and kind of a perfect crazy for Moon Knight. So he's just the right person if you're going to do like a soft like reboot of that character. Ellis was the guy to pick, I think, because his mind just doesn't work the same way as other folks do.
Agreed. And the Declan Shalvey doing the art. I don't think I've ever seen his work before, but I enjoyed how he represented even Khonshu, the different take on that too. It's kind of a fun rebrand almost.
All right, for myself, my recommendation is Stuff of Legend. It's just this brilliant series. It's set during World War II, and a young boy, his father is off serving in the war, and he is abducted by the boogeyman and taken to the land of the dark. And so his toys band together to go save him in the land of the dark.
That's awesome.
There's often panels that will imply that this is the boy's way of coping with his father being gone, or even that his father was lost in the war. But it isn't explicitly said early on, and I'm not going to give away anything. But like, if you want to talk about world building, it's just brilliant. The art is fantastic. Mike Raich and Brian Smith wrote it, and Charles Paul Wilson III is the illustrator. And I mean, I picked this up because of the two reviews on the back. This is some of the loveliest artwork I've seen in a comic book in a long time, and a darkly beautiful story to boot. And that was Brian K. Vaughan, who I've already thrown myself all over on this pod today. And then The other one on there, I love it. It's a real page turner, economical, effective storytelling with story and art complementing each other perfectly and hinting at something larger and very evolving. And that was Frank Quietly. And especially when it involves like marrying art to a story of Frank Quietly speaking highly of it, I'm going to listen because Quietly is just brilliant himself. So I couldn't help pick it up. Also, the fact that there was a teddy bear on the cover. I mean, I have my teddy bear from when I was born still on a shelf. So I'm always going to be partial to that. And it very much feels like being a kid again when you would create epic stories and adventures with your toys and you'd be in the middle of it when your parent makes you clean them up, or at least that's how my life went, to the point where by the time I was like 10 years old, I didn't sleep in my bed because I had the world built up on around the toys. And that's what this graphic novel reminds me of. It's fantastic. The art's beautiful. The characters are so real. Like you forget that these are supposed to be inanimate objects in some dark dimension. It's just brilliant, brilliant. I can't recommend it enough.
Cool.
I believe I read that actual book. I don't know, I borrowed it from you, but
Yes,
it's probably that very same book.
it was this very same book.
I loved it. That was a lot of fun.
Which
So I agree with the recommendation.
I miss living around the corner from you simply because of how often we would just trade graphic novels and books.
Have you read this one yet? Here, take this one.
Which it's funny to think now how often I'll get a recommendation of something to read from you because I remember the first day you picked out your own book. And it's now a book I think everyone in our greater friend circle has read and all of its sequels. So
They better have, yeah.
Yeah. But when I told you to find an interesting cover and you just gave me the craziest look ever that I told you to judge a book by its cover. But now, Josh, we play a version of Marry Fuck Kill called Marry Date Chill, and these guys love it.
Ooh.
So I'm going to give you 3, and you can marry, date, chill with one each with them, and they're going to be loosely connected somehow. And you'll have to take a guess, and you can interpret chill however you want. You can just be hanging, or you can be doing a Netflix and chill thing. But it is Silver Surfer, the Riddler, and Billy Butcherson from Hocus Pocus. Dan, I love the look on your face, so let's start with you. Marry, date, chill.
I don't even know what the hell is happening here. Silver Surfer for all 3.
It's a good answer.
Gonna marry Surfer. I like the intensity and interesting components that relationship would take, and I also really love Silver Surfer Black, so I have to go with that one. The Riddler would be annoying as hell to date, so I got to go with Billy on that. And you say chill with the Riddler, but I prefer to like maybe be at the same party in different corners. If we're talking chill, where I don't actually have to interact with this individual, I just see them from afar and be like, "What a dickhead," and judge them horrendously. So I think that's my take.
And do you know the connection between the 3, Dan?
All voiced by the same person.
There's a specific person, but yes. And not just voiced. There was actual acting involved with some of them.
Yep.
Josh, Tim knows it. Tim figured it out last week. So marry, date, chill, Josh.
I gotta agree with marrying Silver Surfer. He just, I feel like one of the stories I read was just he did everything he did to protect his whole planet. I believe his wife was involved at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Get some real commitment out of that guy. I was thinking dating the Riddler because I just feel like it could be fun for like 1 or 2 dates, and then obviously, like Dan said, you get tired of him pretty quick. And chilling with Billy. I don't know what we would do. Just hang out, I guess.
create a television show called Chilling with Billy.
It's not bad. The
Yeah.
Connection. Oh, jeez. The Riddler. No,
Dan, don't you be looking that up.
I can hear him
Yeah.
typing away over there.
I am now.
Ah, man, I don't know. I have to concede.
Tim,
Okay. So I would absolutely marry the surfer. He's not a white knight, he's a silver knight. Just I can just imagine he's chivalrous as all hell. I would definitely marry the Riddler because I have no other choice, and hang out with Billy because it's nice and cool underground apparently. But the connection is none other than Mr. Doug Jones, who you also know as Mr. Abe Sapien from the Hellboy series, and also the Pale Man and Pan from Pan's Labyrinth.
and also the connection, since this was going to be last week's before Tim came with one, he is listed as Thin Clown specifically, but he is one of the clowns in Penguin's villain entourage.
Really?
Doug Jones is phenomenal. But for me, I'm gonna marry Billy Butcherson because since marriage is till death do you part, I have an easy out clause there. I'm gonna date the Riddler because there have been stretches throughout his comic book history where he was a little more lucid, and then he's just a smart, clever man. And so I'm hoping to bring the best out of him. I'm gonna be that I can fix him type when it comes to the Riddler, and I'm just gonna chill with the Silver Surfer. I'm in the minority here, but I've never been a Surfer fan, and my real only prolonged exposure with him is the series. And I could only listen to him say "My power cosmic" so many times before I'd want to kill him.
Oh, the cartoon was horrendous.
And since he's got the power cosmic, there's nothing I can do to stop him. So
It's true.
but
Yeah,
It's funny because when Dan told me about the Fantastic Four series, I was actually starting to check out the Silver Surfer series. This was back when Disney Plus was still fairly brand new, and it wasn't him or Galactus that I couldn't stand. It was Thanos. I could not stand Thanos' voice because we got so spoiled by Josh Brolin. I couldn't do his proper deep English voice.
yeah,
Also,
there was a
that-
lot wrong with that.
Drax is involved in an episode or two in that series,
Oh,
maybe
yeah.
a bit more. And because it's like that version of Drax and not the Dave Bautista Drax, I just couldn't get into it because I'm like, no, I want Dave Bautista saying that metaphors don't go over his head. That is the Drax I want.
He'd catch him.
That is the one problem with the MCU is you get these expectations, or like you said, and then the cartoon comes out. It even might be great, but it's like it's so different. It's hard to get immersed in it unless you finally get over it.
Well, and Marvel knows this, and they've tweaked characters. Star-Lord very much became the Chris Pratt Star-Lord in the comic books.
Right.
Robert Downey Jr. slowly morphed more into the Tony Stark comic book there. So they know they do tweak for the characters, and it happens with any time something's adapted into media. I know anytime I reread Hitchhiker's Guide, I hear Alan Rickman for Marvin
Yeah.
the Robot,
How do you not?
and I hear Sam Rockwell when I read that book too, because those were just such great castings for that entire movie that those characters, the voices became the characters in my head. So it happens. I think Alan Rickman is also Snape if I were to reread Harry Potter. It's just,
Oh yeah.
but Alan Rickman's voice is always in my head. May he rest in peace. So,
Mm.
but let's move on to Batman Forever.
I don't know. Why are you shaking your head, Dan? I don't get it.
So Batman Forever had a lot of problems from the onset. It was rushed, and the studio didn't like how dark Batman Returns was, which is why Burton produced but didn't direct. And he pushed for Schumacher. They had worked together before. He heavily pushed for Schumacher. But what Warner Brothers wanted was they wanted a Batman for the MTV generation, which is why the soundtrack is as good as it is. And they wanted to market it, which is why you had the Bat plane, the Bat submarine. So there was supposed to be one giant commercial, and that's what it was. And they also wanted it to be campy. There's apparently a cut that Schumacher did that's an extra 40 minutes, and it cuts out a lot of the villains and a lot of Robin and focuses on Batman dealing with the existential crisis of are Bruce Wayne and Batman two people.
Can we get the Schumacher cut then?
Yeah, then apparently like
It sounds like a good movie.
yeah, it so Schumacher wanted it darker. He part of the campiness was him. He did want an ode to the Adam West Batman, but it wasn't supposed to be that campy. So this is, we talked last episode about how we could see some of the problems that future comic book movies, especially in the DC world, deal with. And studio oversight in not understanding what the product is was definitely a problem here. I mean, also Tommy Lee Jones somehow was overacting considerably more than Jim Carrey. When Jim Carrey's the subtle villain, you've got a problem.
Yeah.
But overall impressions of this movie, Buck, what'd you think?
Well, rewatching it, I just had a lot of fun. I mean, you just brought it up. Was my biggest question was where the tone came from. Like it was so cartoony. I was like, none of the cartoons are even this cartoony. That was a big question of mine. But just watching it as it is, like I had a lot of fun. My wife actually commented while I was watching, it's like, your face is like pure joy right now. I couldn't really explain it, but
not only can I can hear her saying that to you, and I can just I'm imagining the grin on her face as she's saying this to you. As she's giddy watching you be giddy at this.
That's what I told her, like, if this wasn't a Batman movie, it might be like have a huge cult following, because like you have this expectation, especially after Batman and Batman Returns. And even anyone who read the comic books didn't see this coming. But I do remember being a 9 or 10-year-old thinking, Jim Carrey's in this movie. I'm excited. And rewatching it, it was definitely campy. And I guess it's good to know they were trying for it, because they definitely did it. But to me, because I just love B movies and, so bad it's good sort of stuff. And looking at it that way, it was a lot of fun. Go ahead.
I'm glad you mentioned the age, because you're, I think, exactly 2 weeks older than I am. Dan's a little older than we are, and Tim, you're a little younger than us. So like, I think age and when we saw this came into play, because as I was rewatching Jim Carrey destroy the Batcave and the stupid lines he was saying, I'm like, this is ridiculous. But I remember being in 4th grade and everyone I know quoting that, the whole like monologue there. So this definitely had a market, and it wasn't 30-year-old men watching Batman films.
Yeah, 30-year-old comic book nerds.
Which might be the problem, and that's what MCU's done, I think, so well, is kids love Star-Lord, kids love Rocket, kids love Groot, but adults love Rocket and they love Groot. And
they've
because
found a fantastic balance between enjoyable and childish.
Yeah. Tim, what were your impressions and memories of this movie, since you didn't get a chance to fully rewatch?
So this movie is not emotional, but it hit me right here a little bit, because Jim Carrey was the first example of like, oh my God, I can't believe this actor that I love so much is out of his shell doing a comic book movie. And he was great. He is Edward Nygma in my eyes. Tommy Lee Jones, like I remember remember seeing this on like USA, TNT, wherever it would show on cable TV as a kid, and even as like a 9 or 10-year-old watching this, I thought they could have dialed it back a little bit. I From the first moment I saw this movie, I hated Tommy Lee Jones's costume and how they did the face. It was just the leopard print was so cringy. But yeah, I just pretty much came out of that loving just how over the top Jim Carrey was, and oh my god, so many pelvic thrusts.
All the pelvic thrusts. The pelvic thrust should have been retired after this movie. Jim Carrey used it.
Yeah.
He met the quota.
Yeah.
But yeah, overall I thought it was a decent movie. I actually have more memories of Batman and Robin over this one. But yeah, if I was able to, I'd probably watch it again just for the lulls.
Dan?
I'm
You
gonna
can
be
hear
honest.
this. You can hear the disdain in his voice already.
I feel like the cast actually did what they were asked to do. I'm just bummed that they were asked to do what they were asked to do. The acting based on the goal was spot on. It was just an awful script, awful story, and I think you can have camp while still having decent writing. I think we've seen that in existence before. I don't even think Kilmer was that bad of a Batman. I just think that it was an awful script. It's interesting, I think the CGI was purposely the way that it was. I don't think it was like they set out to do this great thing and they failed. They had a specific mission and mission accomplished. It just sucked from the get-go. So Debbie Mazar was actually my favorite part of the movie. I love her, but I think she actually played Spice really well.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought it up. She was phenomenal as Spice, and I didn't know who she was as a kid, but rewatching it, honestly, I thought the Sugar and Spice combo, I thought they both nailed that. That was the best casting in the film, really.
Yeah. As a kid, I remember loving this movie. So I mean, I'm right there with you, Josh. I loved it as a kid, and I remember telling Greg, like, oh, I'm excited to watch this because of the soundtrack. And I mean, yeah, the soundtrack is great. Anytime you can have Mazzy Star and Brandy on the same soundtrack, count me in. I think I was messaging Greg during the watching of this movie more than I was actually focusing my eyes on the movie, because I got to the point where I was just, enough's enough. Please make it stop. I mean, I would even bow down to Two-Face to make it end, just to make it stop. It's one over the top thing after the next. So it's a definite miss for me. And then I looked at its rating, and it's actually above a 5, which shocked me. But then there is the crowd that enjoys that type of thing. Batman and Robin was better to me as well. I actually like Chris O'Donnell in the role of Robin, and I like his kind of intro with that. And even with a terrible script, he made it work. So props to him. And I know that after these films, he was kind of outcast from Hollywood for a while. And I don't think that's fair to him, because he did exactly what he was asked to do.
He did his job.
Yeah, exactly. So he showed that he was malleable. And I remember even as a kid with all the pressers and stuff, it wasn't Batman we were seeing. It was Chris O'Donnell on Entertainment Tonight, on the back of like Sports Illustrated, on all the commercials. That's what we were seeing was Chris O'Donnell. The dude took this franchise on his back only to get outcast from Hollywood afterwards for doing what he's asked to do and being excited about it. But
you're a great actor who does what you're told.
Right.
Get out of here.
He got Brendan Fraser.
He definitely got Brendan Fraser. He totally did. And for the worst reason possible. I mean, he did exactly what he was supposed to do. It's just awful movie. But
yeah,
for those who enjoy it, enjoy it, I guess.
As far as actual movies go, yeah, it's awful. It's like I remember, I get why Nigma was upset with Bruce Wayne, because he nixed his project, but how did he latch on to Batman? Like, he found out he was Batman after he was already upset with Batman, and it's like,
right.
Oh, I'm upset with Bruce Wayne too. This is great.
And we saw better CGI in the first two than we saw in this one, and that's what also bugged me because we just recently watched those two,
Right.
and the fact that we went down about 20 years to back to the actual like Batman show in CGI, and I don't think that was intentional. I just think that they were in over their head. Really also bothered me, and geez, I don't know. I don't want to sit here and belabor it, but it's a miss for me.
This was 94, right? And then Batman and Robin was 95.
This was 95. Batman and Robin was actually 97.
Yikes.
Yeah.
Even worse.
And that's why going back, like, especially Batman and Robin, because there's some scenes where I'm like, the CGI was much better in 97 than what this was. But I don't know. Like, it's interesting. Like, I'm glad you mentioned that Chris O'Donnell thing, because I've mentioned how much I loved the Robin action figure from this movie a couple times now.
You have. You actually made me dig mine out. I wish I had it for right now.
I think I really like his costume in these movies.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the first one where it's just basically the acrobat.
Right, the Grayson.
Which I've always...
Flying Graysons, yeah.
I've always hated anytime the Flying Graysons are depicted wearing essentially the Robin costume. It always seemed kind of silly to me because, like, of course Tim Drake's going to figure out who Robin is when he's wearing the costume he was wearing when his parents died.
Well, there's only one Flying Grayson left.
Yeah.
He probably didn't get it from a thrift store.
But just looking real quick, because I knew this was early in his career, but at that point, O'Donnell had done a small role in Fried Green Tomatoes. He was in School Ties, but what young actor wasn't in School Ties? And then he was in Scent of a Woman. So he was in like ensemble cast where he didn't have to carry things. And then he was also in the Three Musketeers, which...
He was in Scent of a Woman?
Yeah, he was in Scent of a Woman. He played just a minor character, but... And then he was in the 1993 Three Musketeers, and he was great in that, but once again, ensemble cast. So this was really the first role he had to carry things, and the dialogue he was given was awful. And he was probably a little too old to be playing the jaded, wounded teen. I think he should have gone a little more brooding and less shouty, but that isn't his choice. He was acting the role that was given him. But yeah, no, his career, I mean, he only has 36 credits on his IMDb, and he's been around since 1990. So, and he has definitely grown as an actor. Like, I watch NCIS LA, obviously, because LL Cool J is in it, but he is great in that. Like, the two of them are great together. I'm like, O'Donnell can act. It's unfortunate what happened to him. And it's because, unlike Kilmer, he stuck around for Batman and Robin. But I mean, I even think, was it the movie The Bachelor he was in, where he has to like marry someone to save a factory? And I loved him in that film too. But also you get the line where Mariah Carey says, "All I remember about you is you looked good without your shirt, but so do I." And just iconic Mariah line.
Mariah.
Interesting, some casting for this. The Schulmacher wanted to cast Billy Baldwin as Bruce Wayne.
Jesus.
And I guess if you're ever in his career, you're going to look at Billy Baldwin. He was only a couple years removed from Fire Jumper. So this would have been like the time he was that Baldwin for this role, but he was never actually the Baldwin role for this. And then when Kilmer left before the next one, that's who he pushed for before Clooney signed on.
I kind of just say that there's no good role for any Baldwin. That's just been my life's statement, but
I can't say that's wrong.
No, Stephen Baldwin is perfect in Biodome. So
I was going to say the exact same thing.
You got me.
Such an amazing movie.
I used to think so, and then I rewatched it like last year, and yes, I still enjoy the movie, but I do not enjoy him whatsoever. His face bothers me. His mannerisms bother me, and
yeah, then you can't. All the Baldwins look exactly alike, and they move the exact same way. So
yeah,
there's no role if you can't appreciate.
Not to mention, Daniel Baldwin made me follow him on Twitter at a concert and made me take a selfie with him. And, and then he started sending me scriptures every day. And that was at an Our Lady Peace concert at Del Lago Casino. So that was,
I like every part of that story.
I was done with the Baldwins after being stalked by Daniel Baldwin.
You also can't forget Steven's award-worthy role as Barney in the Flintstones.
Everybody deserved an Oscar for that.
Exactly.
I forgot about the Flintstones.
That was the sequel, right?
No, Viva Rock Vegas was the sequel.
Tim's really taking us there.
I take my live-action Flintstones seriously.
Oh, so are you excited for the Pebbles and Bam Bam adult animated series coming?
Hey, I just like the cereal.
Okay.
I like the gummies.
All right. Was there anything else about this movie you guys want to touch upon before we move on to Batman and Robin?
No, I'm ready to
Nope.
move on and leave it
Nope.
completely.
Yeah. Put this behind us.
All right. So Batman and Robin. This is the first one Burton's not involved with at all. So he'd been a producer on Batman Forever, but he wasn't involved at all. And just like the other two sequels, the script was rewritten 100 times. Obviously, O'Donnell comes back in the role, and you get Gauck back as Alfred and Hingle back as Gordon, but that is it. And we end up with Clooney. I don't hate Clooney as Batman. I think Clooney's Bruce Wayne was better than Val Kilmer's Bruce Wayne, but Kilmer's Batman was better than Clooney's Batman. And this is, Clooney's still on ER at this point, so I think this is before Three Kings, which he was phenomenal in. So this is before Clooney becomes Clooney. This is very early Clooney, and you can tell watching it. And I don't think him and O'Donnell had chemistry at all, which is a problem when a big part of the story is infighting between the two of them. But Uma Thurman, though, what perfect casting. The character was a little too corny going back as an adult, but the scene when she comes back and pops through the earth and then she does like the gorilla striptease, those scenes, like young Gregory fell in love with Uma Thurman because those scenes, like, I didn't quite understand what sexuality and sensuality was, but I knew Uma Thurman had it, and she had it in this role just in the campiest way possible.
I'm going to be honest. I was a little disappointed because I remember mentioning to you a couple weeks ago when we talked about this, about the soundtrack. And for some reason, all I remember about this movie was the soundtrack, and then not having any of the songs in the movie totally just made me weep inside.
Well, and they did that with both movies. Like if you look back at Batman Forever, only 3 of the songs on the soundtrack are actually in the movie. And I think it's 3 from the soundtrack in this one as well.
Yeah.
But you do get the Smashing Pumpkins song in the soundtrack, which did win a Grammy. So
it was a great song. But
there is an aspect of this film that is award-winning.
Well, like having Soul Coffee and Goo Goo Dolls, and we talked about on Battle of the Ballots, my love for Michelle and Dagonocello, and Bone Thugs missing from it, even Foolish Games from Jewel, like all these are missing from the movie. I'm like, what is happening? Where are my songs? But I get it. It's been a long time since I revisited the movie, but I listen to the soundtrack regularly. So
yeah. And this was another one, the studio wanted to sell toys. So This is just one giant commercial. Coolio cameo, and apparently that Coolio cameo was supposed to go into the next Batman movie, which would have been called Batman Unhinged, where he played Scarecrow. And I know Tim loves Scarecrow. Are you sad you never got your Coolio Scarecrow, Tim?
No, I'm not.
I kind of really want a Coolio Scarecrow now.
That's how we can fund his cooking show, is he can take a role as a Coolio Scarecrow.
I like that.
Yeah, like DC's doing all these solo projects. Give me a freaking Coolio Scarecrow solo project. Even if it's only a 20-minute short, I'm in.
Give him an HBO Max limited Elseworlds series where he's playing Scarecrow.
I'm in.
I don't even
Ooh, fun.
But yeah, so Coolio was supposed to come back, and actually Clooney, Silverstone, O'Connell, it all signed on for this next Batman film too. But the reviews and the fact that it didn't do well domestically in the box office tanked that. So this came out in 97. That would have come out in 99 was they were going to rush the sequel. And I forgot, Batman Begins rebooted the Batman franchise in 2005. So there's only 8 years between this and the reboot, which seems so much longer.
I mean, you're also, this is the time where comic books were dying, comic book stores were dying. The whole niche for it was gone. I mean, Jurassic Park, Dinosaur Fever had taken over, kind of along these lines. So, I mean, we watched Marvel sell off all their assets. We watched DC come to the brink of bankruptcy. And so it was a tough time to push forward with sequels when people just weren't there. And there were a lot of projects that were rumored at that time, including, we had Nicolas Cage Superman that never happened. We had various X-Men projects that didn't take place at the time too, because the licensing rights and all that stuff. So I think it's important to remember just how down in the dumps comic books were at that time in the industries that were making them.
Yeah, Marvel filed for bankruptcy in what, 96?
Yeah, it's when the last 2 seasons of the X-Men animated show were sold to a Chinese company. So I think that was 95 or 96. And so it was a rough time for DC too, because nobody wanted their properties. It wasn't until the CW picked up DC stuff that they even took off again. Where they had to, they got Smallville off the ground. That's really what kind of resurrected a lot of the DC stuff, whether people want to say it or not. And Tom Welling was like 34 the first season, but that's neither here nor there. But that's really what kind of rescued DC again. So after these Batman movies, they banked it in the box office, but they didn't save the actual company they were representing. So there's a lot of that backstory that was really ugly and potentially scary for a lot of those comic book fans.
Well, and internationally, this movie did really well. And one reviewer credited it because the nuances of language is that internationally you didn't realize how bad this dialogue was. So you could just focus, on all the pretty lights. And I was like, wow, there are a lot of lights. I actually rewatching this, I knew I liked Arnold's freeze, but I kind of like a corny Arnold Schwarzenegger making ice puns.
There's so many one-liners.
You can. Oh, go ahead.
That's pretty much it.
but you can only make so many. I felt like by the end of the movie, he was starting to repeat himself a little bit.
And also, when every line of dialogue that you have is a pun, it's a bit much. I mean, I started a drinking game for myself watching this just to get through it. And that was every time that he made a joke or a funny, I was drunk by the end.
Yeah, I don't doubt that.
But at the end of the day, I really did like seeing Freeze's whole shtick on screen. Mainly talking about his motives for doing what he does. And granted, it was just a tray full of little ice cubes. That was keeping his wife alive. I'd love to see that again in the movies in some capacity. I feel like in general, like on screen, Mr. Freeze has been severely underutilized.
Yeah, I would really like to see a reboot or whatever of Mr. Freeze, because it's a pretty relatable, the most relatable villain, I would say.
Yeah.
From Batman, as far as I can consider.
Thinking about it while watching it, I thought the puns, they grow old. So I was like, you know what? He should have been dropping the puns at the time Ivy tells him that Batman and Robin killed his wife. That was when he should have dropped the puns. If just that feels like that's when you drop them. Yeah. You're lighthearted when you're doing the crime to save your wife's life. When you're trying to freeze the world because your wife is dead and nothing matters, that's when you drop the puns.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But the other thing I'd been thinking is one of the reasons we didn't go forward with a fifth Batman film, because it made money. It didn't do as well as the previous 3, but it made money, especially internationally, which as we know, international market is sometimes why movies get made.
I
But
mean, the majority of the current DC movies, it's because of the international market.
yeah, I mean, a lot of the stuff we see that goes like straight to DVD, and you're like, why did this terrible movie go even get made for DVD? And it's because it sold out theaters in China.
Yeah.
But DC was really worried that this Freeze performance was going to affect, because the feature length Batman animated Freeze film was due to come out, and they were worried that this movie was going to tarnish the animated one, which is, it's crazy to think about, because still like DC's animated stuff is far superior to its live action. So they were right to fear that. Because especially like the Freeze episodes of Batman the Animated Series won an Emmy. So
Yeah, I
that's
was just gonna
Freeze
say it was some of my
was the
favorite
character.
episodes
Yeah.
of that show was Mr. Freeze.
Yeah. And I was thinking, why isn't anti-villain a term? We've got anti-hero, a good guy doing, or what is essentially a bad guy for the right reasons. Like Freeze is an anti-villain. Like, yes, he's committing crimes, but he's doing it for
He's
the
got
right reason.
yeah, pure motive. But
Yeah. So
Well, I see your point. It would just be redundant.
well, I mean, anti-hero is kind of redundant. So you're either hero or villain. Like, if we're gonna do one, why can't we have the other? I'm pushing for anti-villain, and Freeze is
think
the
that
only
you're-
one I have.
I think that you're hinging on the fact that the writing staff actually had the wherewithal to do something right by this movie. And that just isn't there from the gate. I
That
don't
wasn't
think-
the writing staff. That was actually the creation of Freeze as a character. They just didn't ruin that motivation in Freeze. So
Yeah, I don't know. I think I was honestly going into these movies too. I think I was spoiled by Batman the Animated Series because they were so perfect with these characters. I mean, when I think about these Batman characters, that's immediately where I go.
yeah,
And then even having read a lot of the comics and stuff, it's animated series was just so excellent. So when I get these iterations of it, I'm like, oh,
now the nipples on the suits, did those stand out to you guys rewatching this at all? Or was it just
didn't even
something?
notice.
it's just that one scene where they're suiting up and they just show everything.
I can't keep my eyes off them.
But I didn't see it after.
Because I rewatched them and I'm like, oh yeah, I think near the end of Batman and Robin, when the three of them are talking, I was like, oh yeah, Batgirl doesn't have nipples, but the guys do. Weird. So one of the things about that is it was only an issue because of Joel Schumacher's sexuality. Is that after Batman Forever, there was a bunch of reviewers and media outlets that were upset that he was doing homosexuality in a film and pushing that. And if we had had a straight director on this, does anyone ever mention the nipples with, because apparently the costume design was to make them statuesque, and his defense was Greek statues show everything atomically correct.
Right.
And so if that's what you're going for, yeah, the nipples make sense. And as a kid, I don't remember it being an issue watching it. And I definitely rewatching it noticed it in one scene only because Alicia Silverstone's suit didn't have it, which makes sense, I guess, for censor reasons. But I was like, damn, yeah, this is only an issue because certain media outlets made it an issue
Right.
for the dumbest reason possible.
I was more perturbed by the credit card than I was about the suit. He never leaves home without it.
Yeah. Somehow, without revealing his actual identity, Batman has
Was
a,
able to get a credit card.
separate credit card that's not a Bruce Wayne credit card.
And Batman has his own social security number.
Yeah, that was ridiculous. I think the biggest thing that stood out for me, knowing that these were essentially just giant commercials, was that not only did Alfred have a Batgirl outfit for his niece, but then had a silver ice outfit for her too. So
all
yes,
three of them actually.
Yeah. So
It's gonna come up. I know it.
Yeah. Yeah, so did he have like a fire outfit for his niece made up too to go with the guys? Like every
Probably.
variation suit they also have for he made for her.
Yeah.
It's
It's like in the Lego Batman movie when Robin's going through all the different suits he had. Alfred just has 3 versions of every single one in case one of his relatives stops by and stumbles upon the Batcave. I figured you'd be here.
yeah, it just there's no logic to that other than selling action figures. But then I thought about it, especially with Batman figures, because there was a line of various Batman suits. There was a fire Batman suit so he could flame. There was a Mystic Knight one where he went back in time and was fighting with Arthur. And I know these like comic book stories exist, but yeah, no, they did do a whole line of Batman through time and Batman through like alternate dimensions where he had different costumes. And then there was a Nightwing figure in that line, and it was just the regular blue and gold Nightwing figure. So that was how they squeezed in a Nightwing figure. It was just the Batman through time figures in the mid '90s. So this was a thing, and I mean we still do it. Marvel Legends, when a character's in a movie, they'll release like 3 versions of that character throughout the comic history. So it is still a thing, but it's not as blatantly obvious that they're just developing it in the movies to sell action figures. Now they're just using the movies as a great way to push these action figures. And the sculpting of action figures has gotten so much better. So I'm all here for it. Now, related to the Poison Ivy, you guys have seen that. Why am I blanking on her name? But we are be getting a push for Harley Quinn and Poison Ivy in the DC films. Have you guys seen that?
No,
Yeah. I don't. I'm in the minority. I don't like Margot Robbie's Harley Quinn, to be honest. I also don't like Harley Quinn as a character, so I don't get excited with that stuff. I think Poison Ivy's a solid character. I just the direction these DC movies have gone, I just find it hard to hedge my bets and get excited about any of it.
I think it all depends on the writing. I mean, the dynamic between the two of them in the comic books is interesting. So if they were to do it right, it could be great, but I guess we have no reason to have faith that they're going to do that right. I liked Birds of Prey. I know you didn't, Dan, but I thought Birds of Prey was fun. But I don't know that it had nearly enough layers to incorporate the relationship between Ivy and Quinn. So,
I think if I was a teenager, college student, something like that, I'd enjoy a lot of these films much more than I do. But given just kind of the time constraints I have, if I sit down for something, I want to be fully invested in it, enjoy it, and have it deliver. And I think that's what really gets in the way of my enjoyment. It becomes more of an annoyance if it feels like a waste of time to me, as opposed to, when I was in college, I was just binge drinking, buying Taco Bell, working at Friendly's, as opposed to now it's like daddying, working multiple jobs, trying to, do whatever I can, stuff like that. So when I sit down to watch something, I need to be worthwhile. And that doesn't mean every movie's an Oscar winner. I watch a lot of shit movies too. It's just the DC projects don't even pretend to be decent at this point. So, I don't know. A lot of these characters have just become so toxic to me too that I don't enjoy seeing them on screen. Like Harley Quinn's not a character that excites me by any means to see in any project. Just because of the evolution of Harley Quinn. I think initially great character, the writing in the comics was solid, and just where it's become in pop culture and where they've run with it in these movies, it's not what I want to see.
yeah, and that's completely understandable. Tim, did you have any thoughts on the idea of Ivy joining Harley Quinn in the DC films?
I mean, I feel if they're gonna make a thing, I feel like it's gonna have to happen eventually. I mean, yeah, it could or couldn't, but if anything had to happen, I'd like to see that happen. I have not seen Birds of Prey, so I don't know how. Like Grant, it's just like one version of how it could go, but I actually don't know where I was going with that. So, I don't know. I'm not a huge fan of Harley to begin with, but any chance that I could see a good rendition of Poison Ivy, I'd be all in.
I don't know if you guys have played the Arkham video games,
Mhm.
but I just recently finished Arkham Knight, and there's a really good Poison Ivy storyline. I thought that was really neat. If we could see something like that in a movie or series, something kind of serious and some redemption value too. Just it was kind of neat to see her that way.
Yeah, I was telling these guys a couple episodes ago about how I just love different renditions and imaginings of these characters. And when I think of Batman, the Arkham series is where I go first. I just love their character designs. It's so great. And
great storytelling.
Yeah.
Should just have them make a movie.
Yeah,
I've often said, like, can we please get the DC animated team to just make every movie? Because I think it'll be good. Just like the video game squads. I don't play video games, but I hear how great the games are. Can we just merge those two groups and just say, hey, make us this movie?
I don't know how many animated Batman movies everyone's like, this is the best movie I've ever seen. But and then they try and make this the live action. It just doesn't translate somehow. Like, do they just not include these writers at all?
Right, that's the thing. Like, everybody always talks about how I crap on DC all the time, and no, it's just the DC movies and many of their comics, but their animated features just are so much better than Marvel's stuff, and they explore the characters fully. They're very solid, actually.
But they don't market them. It seems like all of a sudden you see, like, oh, here, this one's been released on Blu-ray. Like, oh, I didn't know you were making it. Like, tell somebody. Like,
well, it's interesting you say that, because I was on HBO Max the other day watching these two shit fests we talked about, and I saw these animated features, and I'm like, I haven't heard of half of these. Like, I mean, they advertised The Killing Joke like crazy, and unfortunately that was one of the disappointing ones they released. But
yeah, I was disappointed with that too.
Very much so.
I like the comic, the graphic novel, I guess you'd call it, but they added too much, I think.
They did. They tried to update it a bit too much, but then
I watched two of the animated.
What's that?
I was gonna say they made a mistake making a theatrical release for that one, because the graphic novel's not like a 6-issue run of a graphic novel. It was like a shorter standalone story. Yeah. So this should have been maybe a 40-minute direct to video thing.
Yeah, it was straight rubbish. But no, I started a few of the animated features on HBO Max after, just to cleanse myself from what I experienced here. And so enjoyable. I just really wish that we'd get more of that in that live action films.
I think there's some like hit or miss with the Batman ones. I think the DC ones as a whole are wonderful, but I didn't like Batman Bad Blood and the Batman and Robin. I didn't like those two, but I also just really don't like current iterations of Batman. So that was tough when you're drawing inspiration from these comic book runs, but
makes sense.
For the most part, like, I mean, the animation is so well done. The stories are coherent, which is kind of crazy that a coherent story is a high bar right now, but
well, there's also so many that you're bound to get a few duds.
It's crazy that they don't use animation so well. I've said this numerous times over the many years I've been a fan of comics and superheroes, but like, use the animation to create alternate like worlds and dimensions and one-off stories. I mean, Spider-Man Blue is like one of my favorite self-contained stories from Jeff Loeb, and I've mentioned that on this pod. It would make a great just animated one-off series for Spider-Man, and I know like Disney can't do that, but I would love stuff like that. Even like, for some reason, Snyder's Justice League has that giant following. Don't give him that budget to make more full-length live action films, but let him create his own animated world that you can stick on HBO Max, and those rabid Snyderverse people can get their Snyderverse, and the rest of us can ignore it. And I think like that is the best like use of Harley Quinn right now. Margot Robbie wants to keep playing the character, so let her do, if there's going to be more Suicide projects, let her join those Suicide Squad projects, but give her just an HBO Max series, give her a good good showrunner. I mean, like, Nacha Khan, who did Don't Trust the Bee in Apartment 23, which is just a underrated sitcom. But give her a Gotham Sirens or a Birds of Prey series. She does female relationships and shows so well that you'd get like a real adaptation of what female relationships are instead of what David Ayer's imagining they are while he's watching his Pornhub account. Like,
Yeah, I think I'm just done with the character altogether, to be honest. I don't think there's anything that bring me in, from who she's become in the comics, who she is in the covers of the comics, who the movies are giving us. I'm just done.
and yeah, but I'm thinking like if you're gonna save the DC like direction,
Oh, there's no saving it.
Harley Quinn has that following, specifically the Robbie Harley Quinn. So if she's a character in other team up films, but then has her own series on HBO Max for those people, you're still drawing them in because unfortunately we've seen the ridiculous backlash when we move on from things that need to be moved on from that are terrible.
Well, when you look at it, I mean, you have the DC stands that no matter what garbage you feed them, they keep saying, "Oh, it was amazing. You just don't understand." So there's no saving the DC universe. That you have the people who will not, the fans will not go away, and the rest of us saying like they could do so much better for you. And they're like, no, it's all good, man. Have another. So it's DC makes their money regardless.
If you could please just re-release that movie, I like.
Right?
Make it longer too.
Give me a couple more hours of this.
Yeah, I
love
love
unused footage. Just throw it out there.
I just love that the Snyder cut was really the Snyder reshoot and then cut. Like, that wasn't a director's cut. Like, that wasn't the Blade Runner director's cut, which is wonderful. It was a new movie.
Yeah.
That set up multiple sequels for that he was never going to be able to do. It's ridiculous, but like you have that HBO Max platform, and I think they need to use it. And I enjoy the Titan series on there, but like it's not connected to your universe at all. Like Stargirl, which is on there, and CW isn't connected to this universe at all. It's in the Berlanti stuff. So they're missing a great opportunity that we're seeing Marvel do so well in using that platform. And they just need it. Like, give me a fucking Detective Chimp series on HBO Max. Like, how great would that be? Because then you get the crime solver detectives of the DC universe, but then you get the mystic stuff. So you can bring in Constantine. You could bring in the Keanu Reeves Constantine. You could bring in the Matt Ryan Constantine through a Detective Chimp series. Like, there's just DC has so many great properties that aren't ever going to be used right in film, and it's kind of a shame because they have an unlimited bank account with AT&T. So use it.
Yeah.
I'd like to see some Dr. Fate just used properly in an episode or something, or just anything.
Well, we're gonna be seeing Dr. Fate because he's gonna be in the Black Adam movie,
Oh,
Yeah.
nice.
played by Pierce Brosnan.
Interesting.
Yeah, that's intriguing. And to be honest, I know that The Rock is involved in a lot of blockbuster trash that draws a lot of people in, but I think that his heart is in the right place in this. And Pierce Brosnan doesn't just do movies to do movies. And
Yeah,
so
so I must have liked something.
yeah, I'm really optimistic about this
Nice.
one feature, to be honest. And something about The Rock is Dwayne Johnson, he also draws in writers that he prefers. And so I think that's going to help too. You don't get his caliber without taking on the ego and the demands. And so he's not just going to do it to do it, especially where he is now in his career. So I'm cautiously optimistic about this project, but I think that they'll finally get something right.
Well, and even the blockbuster crap that he does outside of the Fast and the Furious stuff, because I'm never going to watch it. I hated the first one, and I'm not going to watch it when they become like robot guys in their cars. Like, so like if the first one was bad, making them ridiculously overpowered humans in their cars isn't going to help me become interested. But like his trash is like it's A+ B movie stuff, which is an art form of itself. So if he can elevate bad stuff, like let's see what he can do with something passionate that he's taken his time helping develop. So there is hope for that, but honestly, DC just needs to hire Brian Michael Bendis. As I'm like rereading that mid 2000 stuff, he wrote all the events for Marvel there, and the events were usually pretty good, but all the stuff around the events were bad. And I was like, oh, that's because you need someone like Bendis at the helm. So let's see how he can do with the movie franchise, because he can't do worse than some of the stuff they're throwing out there. Also, they need, I think, more than like an overall showrunner. What they need is just a general director of photography for all the DC movies. That way, they all at least look relatively the same. You can make minor tweaks, but like there's one vision on how it should look.
Yeah, one person in charge of the. Yeah, that's a good idea. You're not skipping all over the place.
Yeah, I honestly, I get to the point where I don't like talking about the stuff anymore because I know I'm just like just negative on all of it, and I've been on many podcasts and videos, and I hate to be that guy because there's so much great stuff in the nerd world, but I got nothing when it comes to studios. I don't even have wishes for them anymore. I just wish they would stop making stuff. So I hate to be that guy. And it's not even that I'm against DC characters. I just am against what their entire company has turned out, comic book wise, movie wise, late animated series wise, distribution wise, when it comes to their comics, just so much. I have a big middle finger towards DC for a lot of reasons. And it's mainly on behalf of their fans that should see all the stuff they're being duped about, but they just don't. But yeah, that's kind of where the conversation ends for me when it comes to DC is I got nothing.
And understandably so. I mean, we can't beat this dead horse, reanimate it, and beat it to death anymore. So, Dan, you want to get some plugs in?
Yes, we have Battle of the Ballads 1996. Nope, 95 tomorrow.
95.
Correct?
I was about to say, Joe is traveling, and I only have a sheet for 95 for him. So.
Yes, Battle of the Ballads 1996 tomorrow, or 1995 tomorrow. I started my research on 96 today. Tim and I have our travel through the MCU on Wednesday. Where we are doing
Civil War, Homecoming, and Doctor Strange.
Yes, I just finished my wrap up of those yesterday. And no, Guardians 2.
No, it was Homecoming.
That I messed up. And also Rock Depression, the event in Rochester, New York here that's taking place. There is a new video out for the 5K. I have shared it. I'll be putting it up on my YouTube as well. It's gaining a lot of traction here to where local vendors are also getting involved. So just getting rid of the stigma surrounding depression, mental health, and showing that mental health matters, which it really does. And I think that's all I have at the moment.
All right, Tim, did you have anything separate that you wanted to get in there?
I do. So currently, or recently rather, I took a trip down to Rhode Island to visit some family. And on the way back, if you are ever around Springfield, Massachusetts, there is a store there called Zombie Hideout. And you wouldn't even know, I barely even found it. It's tucked right into the corner of a small little plaza. But when you walk in, holy shit, just wall to wall, Funko Pops galore. They have any kind of grill that you can imagine. And on top of that, they have, oh my God, so many action figures, old comics. They have a small section for vintage video games and just really anything you can imagine, Pokemon cards. And surprisingly enough, we were the only ones in the store for a good chunk of the hour that we were there. I don't know how this place isn't just swamped all the time. And they just had some of the best service for a store like that. I swear, like, no lie, it was about the size of a Big Lots, just full of collectibles. So yeah, shout out to Zombie Hideout in Springfield, Mass. Just fantastic store, and I would definitely take the 4.5-5 hour drive to visit them again. Other than that, we got our usual plug for Gary B, the casual comic guy. And that's really about it from me.
Buck, did you have anything you wanted to put over?
No, I'm just here for the ride. Just
All right.
having fun. Glad to contribute.
Thanks for joining us, man.
Glad to
My
have you.
pleasure.
You're going to be the first guest on my new YouTube series, My Friends Like Cool Shit, but for the very special Buck edition, it'll be called My Friends Like Cool Stuff.
Thank you. I appreciate
Um,
that.
Yes. And want to just shout out my friends over at Dumb Marks Podcast. Donald shared the links to this podcast last week and was interactive on my Facebook about it. So Donald and Jason were great guests, and they both put us over pretty hard on that podcast. So hopefully some of their listeners over in India have transferred to listeners of ours as well. So yeah, thank you to those guys over at Dumb Marks. And of course, substack.com/coolpoints newsletter for my newsletter out every Friday, which Dan, of course, is always representing in Rockaby, and I greatly appreciate it. Guys, this is so much fun. Thank you.
Yeah, no
Thank
problem.
you.
Anytime.